to be watching VeryDarkMatter play Anivia. You'll remember that we watched him play a very good Katarina game, where he went 11-1, I believe. He was able to win quite easily, so I asked him to send me a replay of a game that he didn't do as well in, so that we could look at some things that he could improve upon, maybe. Now, one thing I'll note right away, just that I noticed, is that you only have 6 ability power. You have, it looks to be movement speed quints, and you only have 30 magic resist, which is the base magic resist. So you appear to be going cooldown blues. That's a choice that you don't see very often on mid-laners. Often they go with the flat AP, the AP per level, which actually may be what we're seeing here, or the magic resist. So that's just something to note. So you probably have the AP per level, or the cooldowns. And unfortunately I'm unable to tell which it is just from the cooldowns of your spells at the moment. Starts with boost 3 part. Unfortunately Warwick it appeared to be AFK, but good that you still helped him out and made sure that he didn't fall very far behind. Warwick is a jungler that needs to hit 6 before he can gank very effectively, so making sure he doesn't fall behind is going to be something that's very big. Now, Anivia is a champion that's difficult to last hit with early on. You have good auto attack range, but you have very low damage, and it's kind of an awkward animation. But you're doing a good job here of just last hitting. You are against a jungler Singe, who's not a very common jungler, but can land good ganks with his slow and his flick, and his poison can actually do a surprising amount of damage. You are trying to harass at level 2. Your level 1 Frostbite and Flash Frost do a good amount of damage, but they cost a lot of mana. And had you waited till level 3 and landed that same combo, you would have done significantly more damage, and you would have been able to be more mana efficient in your harass. And also note that if you're not going to try to kill the enemy, which you're probably not going to do, as in Anivia against Arise, and you don't have ganks that are likely to come anytime soon, you don't really need to be harassing and trading damage. Right now, you're in a greater danger of being ganked than he is, because you have a Warwick compared to his Singed, and he has a very reliable stun. Rise is a very good mid lane for a jungler to gank for. So you probably don't want to trade damage, which is what happened there. You're also using your Flash Frost a lot to push the lane, when that is not something you want to be doing because of the ganks, and you're taking a good amount of auto attack harass right here, which is allowing him to push you out of the lane rather effectively. You have the health pots to heal up, and he's low on mana, so those are both things that are good. But if you just did not push as much, he would be less able to chase you, and you would be able to wait till he's out of mana, and at that point you become aggressive with your spells. And you can get closer to him and land reliable flash shots when he's unable to retaliate because he is out of mana, such as right now. So if you were to use your health pots right now and get to a point where a gank won't kill you, you could start being quite aggressive on this Rise. If you're shooting flash shots out from that far, they're almost never going to hit. Any player, especially one with boots, is going to be able to sidestep those rather easily. You're playing rather far back against a Rise who has 0 mana, which is something you don't need to do. You want to be up there making sure you get the last hits. You're playing far back, and it's costing you some last hits because you are simply too late to respond to them. Now, if you notice that Singed was just top, you should be aware of that, and you should be playing closer to the bottom. It's good to flash early, but you are still in a fair bit of a bad spot right here. Luckily, they're taking a very large amount of creep damage, and your creeps were able to finish off Rise because Singed ran away rather than finishing you off. Now note that that's a point where you were out of position and the other players misplayed it rather heavily. Another thing to note was you could have used your health pots before that Singed came. There's very little reason not to top off, or at least keep yourself at a high enough health to be safe from ganks. Now, you go in a tier, that's definitely a valuable item on Anivia, but in solo queue, you want to get your power early on so that your team doesn't fall behind and so that you can help your team in the early game. And going a tier, which takes a long time to build up, it doesn't give you any actual combat stats. It gives you just the mana and the mana regen. It's something that allows you to spam lane a little bit more and to lay down your ult, which is a very effective thing on Anivia, but it's something that doesn't help you very much in a fight, whereas a Catalyst would be probably a better option to go. A Catalyst into a Rabadon's would be a very safe and effective build as Anivia. It is probably something that's more suitable for the lower heroes because it doesn't require you to rely on your team being able to play as late. Excuse me. Now you have a ward on either side. You note the Rise is going down. You ping to your team. This is a great time to push, which is what you're doing right now. Because you don't have the second blue yet, it should be spawning. It's going to spawn a little late. Normally it's about 7:10, but this game will be about 7:30 probably. You will still run out of mana rather quickly. You try to go top. You notice that the gank is already over, so you just retreat back to the jungle. That's a good play. You try to steal this Wraith. Excellent play. It's a bit hard for Anivia, especially because you do have, it appears, AP per level, so you're getting those amounts of AP, and that's good. I think your leveling of your abilities is good. Getting a second level of Flash Frost is pretty good. It helps you clear the back wave of creeps. Otherwise, you could max the wall. You don't generally want to max the Flash Frost because that's not where a lot of your damage is coming from. That's mostly just used for the CC element of it. But you effectively clear these waves and push in. This is good. You have the wards up. A deeper ward over in this area might be more effective because Singed has the Ghost and has the ult. He can run in very quickly, and if you get snared by the Rise, you'll often see that he can get in on top of you before you have a chance to react. So that's something to think about when you're warding, if you ward very close to the lane. And right now you're doing a great job. Rise is a very bad last hitter under tower. He doesn't have a lot of good AoE. He has his ult, but other than that, he has a very difficult time clearing the creeps and last hitting under tower without using a lot of mana. So pushing into him is giving you a good advantage, in terms of the creep kills. So this is something that it's very good that you're doing. We're going to speed it up a bit. Now you are using your ult. Okay, let's go back really quick. It shows a bad time to speed it up. So my apologies. Okay, this is where you get blue buff. So I went back a little far, but you know, not a huge issue. Okay, so we see the Rise coming back. As we said, pushing into tower, very good. Now, as a Anivia, you have to be careful because you have no escape spells, and your spells are rather long cooldown on your CC spell, and you don't have any real way to disengage unless you can land a wall in between yourself and the other champion, which requires you to have an amount of space that they can't just cast through it. Now you try to land your Flash Frost into a combo, into a Frostbite, but what happens is you get too close to the Rise, and he's able to use his quick cooldowns and his burst to deal a lot more damage to you than you're able to deal to him. So you want to note that you're not really a brawler, you're a long-range poker at this point in the game. you can deal high damage with your combo, but Rise has cooldowns that are a lot shorter than yours. He's going to be able to deal a lot more damage if you allow him to get close, and you really need to be cautious of that, especially since you already have that tier. Now Rise also has that tier, but Rise gains damage from his tier, whereas you do not. So Rise is a bit more combat built than you were, especially since he also had a Ruby Crystal. Now you're building towards a Catalyst. Now the tier into Catalyst into Rod build is going to leave you with a rather late Rod of Ages. That's something that should be noted with this build. Now Singe is ganking, good to flash before you get the fling off, and good way to use that wall to keep him in the ult and almost finish him off. That was a very aggressive turnaround. That was a good idea. It was a little bit unfortunate that he got away. If he had placed a wall so that it was a little bit further out, he would have been forced to stay in the ult a little bit more, and you might have been able to net that kill. But it was still a good turnaround, and it was a good idea. And it's good to know when you can turn around and stop being aggressive on the enemies. You get that Catalyst and a couple wards. Good to always be buying wards. Make sure you're placing the wards effectively is the next thing you need to worry about. And make sure you're not spending all your mana when you're trying to farm under the tower. Luckily you proc the Catalyst, so you are not very low on mana, but be safe that you're not just casting spells just to cast the spells. Make sure that you know how to effectively get those last hits using the spells. Now you notice that Rise is bottom. You can't really push anymore, so you're going to help the bottom lane by running through your jungle. That's much safer than running in front of Dragon. This is a good way to run. Now be careful about getting too close to them, because there's that singed fling, and your flash is still on cooldown for about another 2 minutes. Singe is invading. Now you need to know that Rise is here. That was very dangerous to stay there for any longer than you needed to. You do good damage to Rise, but note that Singe is still here. Don't allow yourself to get caught in between two champions. Don't chase the Singe into your jungle. When Rise could collapse from mid, Rise was a little slow, and that's what allowed you to get away. But you were very close to being in a very bad position there. This is the point where top tower has already gone down, so your top lane is starting to come down towards mid, and I think had you burned that Flash Frost, you would have been able to net that kill. Oh, but you're able to get it with the help of Cho'Gath, landing some spells, so that was very good. Now you guys should be trying to get your team to go to Dragon. If you guys were to go to Dragon now, you would have 5 people, compared to the 3 of the other team, because they are missing Rise and Volibear's top. You could be landing some good harass on this Singed, and after he gets low, you could take that as another opportunity to go to Dragon, because then it would be a 2-on-5 scenario, because he is unable to help. Now Rise is down for another 5 seconds, so you still have all this time, but now would not be a good time to go for it, because the Rise will be respawning. You get flung under the tower, and take a lot of damage. This indicates it's probably a good time to go back. You can either buy a Blasting 1 or the Boots 2 is probably the best 2 options. The Blasting 1 will help you finish that Rod faster, which is what you end up going with. You want to try to finish that Rod as fast as possible, even though you went the tier first. So getting the Blasting 1 isn't a terrible idea, especially since you're not a big roamer. You are mostly a farmer, especially early, and you don't need the boots to be overly aggressive. You are mostly just farming up, so you don't need the boots to move around. The boots would help escape ganks, but if you ward aggressively enough, you'll be able to escape those with only the boots 1. So you continue. Now would be a good time to get Wraiths. You have the blue buff, so if you throw down your ult and your Q, you're able to get them rather quickly. Now you just lose vision of Rise here, so you need to be very careful. There's 3 enemies top, and only, well, there are 2 of you, but you do not know where Rise is, and Rise could be coming to assist. So that's something you need to be wary of. You're able to get close and get a good kill on the Singed. And now's a good time to back out, because you know that Rise could be coming. make sure that you help the Cho'Gath get out. He has to flash, and you turn on the Rise, but notice that the Rise is very high health, and it's not like you're going to kill him, so you just want to start running back away and not letting this Cho'Gath. This Cho'Gath gets a little aggressive on the Rise, and it ends up with both of you going down. That was because you had to note that the Rise was very strong. He was built up a little bit better than you were, and that your Cho'Gath is very low, and Rise is able to snare him in place and make it so Cho'Gath cannot get any of his damage out on the enemies, which meant that you were only doing damage from one champion, which was you. But you're able to finish your rod, and it's not too late of a rod, which is very good. 17-minute rod is not very bad, especially with the tier. But you'd like to work on your farming. You're at 108, Rise are at 104, and you are at the top in the game, but at this point, you could have a good amount more, especially had you been focusing on taking those wraiths more effectively. Unfortunately, Cho'Gath misses the puppet, and you're unable to kill the Singed. That's fine. You may be igniting a little early, but against a champion like Singed, it's good to get that ignite down so he can't get that regen from his ult ticking up, because it actually ticks up rather quickly. Now you pushed up rather aggressively, and you need to have wards near their wraiths if you're going to push up like that. It's a good time to pick up Dragon now that you push their Singed back and you have vision on their bottom lane. You know that it's a safe thing, and your team goes there, and you guys are able to take it quite quickly. Now your bottom lane is getting in a bit of trouble, but you guys are able to catch out this roller there. Unfortunately, he is rather fast, and he is rather tanky, so you're unable to kill him. Picking up the blue buff once again, very good. You can actually get it yourself just by throwing on the ult and then rolling it in, and you'll be able to pick it up without Warwick's help, but if Warwick's there to help, it does go faster, and it is a little bit safer. But if you ever have to do it by yourself, just throw on your ult and then wall, and you go and will take all the damage without being able to attack you. Now you're still using your Flash Frost. You want to try to only use that when enemies are already stunned as like a second form of CC, or when they're slowed from your ult. Trying to hit a long range Flash Frost isn't going to work very often. It leaves you with the cooldown down so that the enemies can be aggressive on you right after you throw that out, and you have no way of keeping them off you effectively if they can get around your wall, or your ult if they can run through your ult. So that's something to just be wary of. Now you pick up the boots too, which is very good. That will give you the extra damage and allow you to move around a bit better and position better for your walls. Anivia needs to position walls to be an effective champion, so getting that extra speed that allows you to get those walls in the right position is going to be something that will help you out a lot. Now you are running in from the river, which is a little bit dangerous, but you have your whole team here. That wall wasn't overly effective, and you're engaging in a fight where your team is a little bit too far back, so you're forced to flash out. Be sure that if you're coming in like that, even though you had more teammates in the area, make sure your teammates know that you're about to start a fight, so that they can participate, and that it doesn't end up being just a 1-on-2 in that situation. And make sure you continue farming. You're doing that right now, but you are getting a little bit behind because of the roaming you've been doing, and the ganks have also set you back a little bit. You're farming fine compared to the game, but just compared to the amount of time that's passed, you could be farming a little bit better, and that's something you always want to work on. Now, notice that you ran in rather aggressively on basically 3 very tanky champions, and this is allowing them to do a lot more damage to you guys than you are able to do to them, because you have nobody in front to CC them and force them backwards like this Cho'Gath is able to do right now. Try not to fight as 3 squishies when the enemies are very tanky, especially early game. The tankiness is something that you don't have enough AP to get through, especially with only a rod. You're sitting at about 100 AP, and your team is now going down. You guys are able to take a couple with you, so it is not a terrible trade because the Warwick was not with you anymore. Warwick had used his ult and went back, and you guys stuck around for a little while. Now you notice that the other team is sticking around. However, this Warwick chose a very squishy build that's not advisable, and he goes down in exchange for the Taric and passes up his red buff and passes up an assist. So that wasn't a good play by Warwick. He was going a very squishy build. I wouldn't advise this on Warwick. And he went in by himself to try to get the kills, but he didn't coordinate with his Cho'Gath, and he didn't wait to see if he would be bursted quickly by the 2 enemies with their forms of CC, the Taric and the stun, and the Rise with his snare. And he was able to be CC'd down and killed. This is exactly how you can get the blue buff, and you're able to get it while taking very little damage, and that's excellent. And going back to defend your tower. Now, it's very dangerous to defend it by yourself, especially with the fling from the Volibear into the Rise, so it's good that you're playing very far back. But even where you are is a little bit aggressive. One of the enemies could flash and CC you, and then you would be comboed down quite quickly by the 4 of them because your team isn't here. So just be wary of that. And you notice the dragon is back up, and you guys do not have very effective wards at this moment. You've bought some for push into the game, but you have not bought it recently. You are checking, using that wall to grant vision. That's a good use of the wall. And now notice that your Ashe is getting caught out. It's good that you went to help stop him, but notice that you ran very far forward when you did that, whereas you can throw your spells from rather long range and still help the Ashe go out without putting yourself in any kind of danger and having to use your own flash. You guys are all very low, but you managed to kill 2 enemies. It's in these situations like this, it's often better to try to kite the enemies but not re-full on engage. You did notice that Volibear was top though, and you were able to get the kills without losing anybody else, which was very good. The enemy team chased you guys a bit too far and didn't realize that they were a player down. So you pick up the dragon. It's very good. And you're building towards your Rabadons. It's very good. You don't want to get a Rabadons any later than your second major item, generally, on an AP. Generally, you need that to do the effective AP damage mid-game that will allow you to take down the AD carries. And if you do not get a Rabadons quickly, excluding champions like Rise, and there are some other exceptions, but if you wait too long, you'll find that you just simply don't have the damage mid-game, and that your burst will not be able to kill enemy carries, so your effectiveness in team fights will not be where it needs to be. It's good that you continue the farming. You can start taking wraiths and wolves. It's very dangerous for you to be as far up as you are, so taking wraiths and wolves right now would be a good idea. Getting vision with the wall is very good. Cho'Gath gets a little far up, and you unfortunately get flung into the middle of the enemies, but you are able to get your team was able to get the kill on the Rise and the Tristana, and they're able to kite this Volibear. This Volibear kept chasing because he saw an enemy low. He was actually able to get the Cho'Gath. So you guys were able to win that fight, losing only 2 of you for 3 of the enemies. At this point, your team should be looking to push out the lanes and possibly take the bottom tower. Battling would probably be very risky at this point because the 3 people alive are very squishy and won't be able to take it effectively, especially with the build where Rook's gone. He can kill it very quickly, but he can't take it very effectively. So top lane will need to be pushed out right now. This Ashe is staying very far up. The enemy team is starting to respawn, and the Singed could choose to run at the Ashe and possibly fling her into a teammate who's coming back from base, so she needs to be wary of that. US still waiting on the road to finish your Rabadons. You need about 200 more. You should tell your team this, because finishing your Rabadons is a very big item for an AP. So if you could wait to fight until you have that, that will increase your effectiveness quite a bit. You took a very dangerous path. Rather than run up through here, you should run down through here and come behind the tower. If you're right here without your flash up, or you do have your flash up, but even so, you may be forced to blow that at a time when you don't need to, because the enemy can catch you out with a CC, and you're playing against a very high CC enemy team. Note that the Volga is coming in behind you. He flings the Cho'Gath, which is good for you, because that allows you to not have to worry about the large amount of CC coming out from him anymore, and it's only the Singed and Rise you have to be wary of. Luckily, the Teemo side pushing is forcing the enemy team to respawn, and you're able to go back. Oh, actually you turn around and continue fighting, but you would be able to go back right now and get that death cap, which will raise your AP up to around 400, only 360, but is giving you significantly more AP than you had right before you bought that. Now your the enemy Volga is chasing your Teemo, and it's a good snare and wall to keep the enemies from continuing the chase. Volga is a little out of position, and you're able to slow him and land some good CC on him, but you guys are getting into a very narrow place, which is allowing you guys to land all of your spells, and that was a good blind. But actually you could see the Rise because of the Warwick, and that was a good shot to take advantage of that vision granted by that ability. Be careful about fighting in narrow corridors. For this team, it's actually very good because the Cho'Gath AoE and the Ashe volley and arrow in your AoE is very good. But be careful if you're the other team, noticing they do not have the same type of AoE, except for the Rise and the Volga when he auto-attacks. But they don't have the same type of AoE abilities that would allow them to effectively fight in tight spaces. They would like to be out in the open where they can kite you guys more effectively, or burst you down very quickly with SCC. So, a pretty decent game. You ran your skills well. You need to work on farming and being caught up in front over the rest. Utilize your long range on Anivia. You want to basically late game throw down your ult and then throw out your frost. I believe it's frostbolt, right? Frostbite. And throw your frostbite, and then just throw your flash frost from a distance, and use your walls to prevent enemies from chasing you. You don't want to be up in the front for any reason, even though your ult doesn't have a huge range. But it was a good game, and you actually were the top farmer, but you could farm a lot better, and that would definitely help you push your advantage. I also don't think the tier is particularly necessary, although you were able to fully stack it. I don't know if you need necessarily all this mana, and I don't know if delaying your rod is going to be worth it a lot of the time, especially in solo queue games like this, because you want to be an effective force earlier on rather than later. But it's definitely a viable item on Anivia, so it's going to have to be determined by your playstyle. Just know that you're going to be a little bit weaker early on and play accordingly.